If you are seeing this PowerPoint presentation, you have completed the Module 2, Chapters 1 and 2, Planning the Message assignment. As an FYI, if you perform the assignment, you have received a grade between 7.5 and 15 points, depending on the amount of work you performed. To ensure that you know how to use the problem-solving approach to plan your future message assignments, I have created this step-by-step guide to show you how this assignment should have been completed and for you to use as a study guide and resource for future assignments. Let's start by reviewing the scenario behind this message. After noticing that some workers were starting work late and finishing early, a department head wrote this message to subordinates. It is apparent that many of you are not giving the company a full day's work, thus the following procedures are implemented immediately. After you clock in, you will proceed to your workstations and will be ready to begin work promptly at the start of the work period. You will not take a coffee break or consume coffee on the job at the beginning of the work period. You will wait until your designated break times. You will not participate in social gatherings at any time during the workday except during designated break periods. You will terminate work activities no earlier than 10 minutes prior to the end of the work period. You will use the 10 minutes to put up equipment, clean equipment, and police the work area. You will not queue up at the exit prior to the end of the work period. How did you feel when you read this message? If you were one of the employees, how would you have reacted? Well, it's easy to see why this message was not well received by the workers. In fact, it led to considerable anger and confusion. In most minds, the negative language used here is associated with harsh and autocratic leadership, the kind most of us do not like. As will be explained in the following chapters, such negative words create unpleasant mental images. In addition, the lecturing tone used throughout the document is insensitive and even insulting in some cases. Most people react negatively when talked down to. A much more diplomatic message would have resulted had the writer thought more carefully about what effects he or she really wanted to achieve. Making people angry should not be one of them. Who would read the message and how they would be likely to respond to various approaches and tones. Using the discussion of communication planning in this chapter, we're going to explain where the department head's problem-solving process went awry. What did he or she fail to take into account? This is related to learning objectives 6 through 8 in your textbook. So we're going to start using the problem-solving approach. This also means that you're going to use the Exhibit 1-5 on page 18 in your textbook. You're going to first start out by determining your goals. Then we're going to analyze the audience. We're going to gather information, then continue to analyze and then organize the information. And finally, we're going to choose the form, channel, and format of the document that's going to be used for a better message. You need to develop a definition of the problem that you're trying to solve. Once you have defined your problem, you can plan your message by answering several questions regarding your context and audience. As you plan your written documents in particular, you're going to make the planning process much more manageable by thinking about it in 5 smaller steps. These are the major questions on that Exhibit 1-5 that I'm talking to you about. The first one is determining the goals. The second is analyzing your audience, gathering the information, analyzing and organizing the information, and choosing the form, channel, and format of the document. Planning a good message takes time. The reason is that you have a lot to consider when writing to an audience you may not know all that well. The investment of your time pays dividends when you are able not only to achieve your goal, but also to enhance your professional image by writing a coherent, concise, and thorough document. First, let's talk about determining the goals. Because business writing is largely performed in response to certain situations, one of your main planning tasks is to figure out what you would want to do about that situation. Bear in mind that in business communication, what to do means not only what you want your communication to achieve, but also any action that is related to the larger business problem. So let's say, for example, that you manage a hotel where the air conditioning has stopped functioning. You're going to need to decide what, if anything, to communicate to your guests about this problem. But this decision is related to other decisions. For instance, how and when will you get the air conditioning problem solved? In the meantime, Will you simply apologize? Will you make arrangements for each guest to have a free continental breakfast or complimentary beverage? Will you rent fans for meeting rooms and any guest rooms occupied by people with health problems? How will you communicate this issue to your superiors? As Exhibit 2-2 shows, solving the business problem and solving the communication problem are very closely related. You're going to bring your business goals to bear on your writing goals, even though sometimes clarifying your writing goals will help you generate business solutions. So let's take a look at our scenario. The first question in our Exhibit 1-5, Planning Your Communication Strategy Using a Problem-Solving Approach, is, what is the situation? Well, here's the answer for you. The situation is that a department head became aware that some workers were starting work late and finishing early. This means they're not putting in a full day's work like the other workers. The goal, what you need to do, is the department head wants to create procedures to ensure all workers know what is required of them relating to the start and end time of an 8-hour workday, including designated break times. Now it's time to move forward and gather the information needed to prepare your message. The first thing we want to think about is, what are some of the possible communication strategies? What, if any, is your prior relationship with your recipient? What are the organizational, professional, and personal contexts? To do this, we're going to perform an audience analysis checklist. You'll see an example of an audience analysis checklist in your textbook. Once you know your purpose, what you want your message to do, you need to analyze the audience who will read your message. So you have to answer these questions. Who will be affected by what you write? What organizational, professional, and personal issues or qualities will affect the audience's response to your message? What organizational, professional, and personal issues or qualities do you have that affect how you will write the message? What's your relationship with your reader? Are you writing to your superior, your colleagues, your subordinates, clients? Answers to these questions and others will influence your channel of communication, your tone, your style, the content, the organization, and the format. Though you should take the time to analyze your audience early in the planning process, you should continue to think of your audience as you proceed through the rest of the planning stage and through the drafting and revising stages as well. Always be thinking about what kind of information will matter most to your audience and adapt your message accordingly. If you fail to meet your audience's needs, your message fails as well and your professional image is compromised. So now to gathering the information. Once you have a sense of what your message wants to achieve and what your audience needs to know, you're going to need to do some research. Gathering information by using memory, imagination, and creativity is also important. Visualizing your readers and bearing their interests in mind is an excellent planning technique. Make a list of pertinent facts is helpful. Brainstorming. Generate possible solutions without censoring them. That will allow you to develop creative solutions. Drawing a diagram of your ideas can also enable you to collect your thoughts. Use any strategy that shows promise of contributing to a solution. I have completed an audience analysis checklist to gather the information necessary in the planning process for this particular scenario, and I have attached it as a PDF at the bottom of the page where this presentation is located in the Canvas modules. Take a look at it, and hopefully it will help you moving forward. The next step is to analyze and organize the information that you gathered. So now we're going to determine what is the best course of action. This step requires some additional research to gather more information on how to create an official office procedure. So typically, you would research the best way to write a procedure. This link should bring you to mindtools.com, which helps you to decide how to write a procedure to improve business processes. In addition, you want to cite any labor laws. Specifically, we're in the state of California, so it would be California labor laws regarding workday hours and breaks. Again, I have a link for you to go to the California labor laws website. Often procedures begin with an opening introductory paragraph that uses positive tone to just inform the readers about what's coming up. So in this case, it would be information about a new procedure. This helps to alleviate any pointing of fingers or assigning blame. Then usually you want to use a bulleted list of the steps from the start of day through the end of day, including the time allotted for morning and afternoon breaks and a meal break. The closing paragraph will promote goodwill. We will learn much more about how to format messages using the direct order in Chapter 5. The next question we want to ask is, what is the best way to design the chosen message? Writers in school typically produce writing of two types, essays or research papers, but on the job, you have a wide range of established forms of communication to choose from. Which one you use has a huge impact on your planning. Each form has its own formatting and stylistic conventions, and even conventions about content. Business writers don't launch into writing a document without some sense of what kind of document it will be. The medium itself helps them know what to say and how to say it. On the job, choosing the type of document to be written is an important part of the planning process. Specific decisions about a document's format or visual design can be made at any point in the writing process, but usually the planning stage involves preliminary decisions along these lines. How can you make the information easily readable and accessible to your audience? Will you be dividing up the contents with headings? How about using a bulleted or numbered list? Anticipating the format can help you plan an inviting and readable message. Formatting devices have a large impact on readers' reactions, so making decisions about formatting is an integral part of the business writer's writing process, even in the planning stage. For example, how many of you have received text messages or emails where somebody uses all caps? What does that denote? That denotes yelling. We don't want to use all caps, even to emphasize something. So the next thing we want to do is talk about the document format. Because this is an internal operational message, this is something we learned in Chapter 1, we are going to use either the memorandum and or the email. That's the preferred document format to use for an internal operational message format. Again, here in Chapter 2 and bonus Chapter A, there are samples of what a memorandum and or email looks like. We're also going to choose to use that bulleted or numbered list. The word memorandum or memo is usually located at the top and includes the company logo. It has the following headings normally. It includes the date, who the message is going to, CC, which means courtesy copy, if applicable, or a BCC, which is a blind courtesy copy. Not often used in business unless you're trying to hide something. And then from, who is this message from? Always include a subject. For instance, in this particular assignment, our subject is going to be workday procedures. If this is a large corporation, a large organization, you might even include the department, the city and state location for other departments located elsewhere. Then finally, we get to the message content. This is the procedure. Finally, it's time to ask that last question. What is the best way to deliver the message? Things you need to consider are the following. Are there timing considerations related to delivering your message? Is it something that needs to go out immediately? Can you wait a couple of days? Should you combine the main message with any other messages? In this case, that might work. How can you best ensure that each intended recipient receives and reads or hears your message? We're going to address that on our last slide. So let's go ahead and take a look at what a suggested solution for this message might look like after we have actually planned the message using the problem-solving approach. Here is the suggested solution. As you can see here, the message is much more positive because it's neutral. It doesn't point fingers or accuse anyone. The message uses then email or memo format. In this case, using the company email system is probably the best way to send the message to all employees. Again, the headings include the date, to whom the message is being sent, who it's coming from, and the subject. The message's opening paragraph begins with a direct statement overviewing the content of the message. Here it says, the Human Resources Department of ABC Company is in the process of updating the company policies, processes, and procedures. Now we go to the body. Very simple. It goes right to the point. It's just telling what's coming up. Now we move to the body paragraph. Attached for your review is the updated hours of work policy effective January 1st, 2018. This policy establishes the official work week at ABC Company. Because of the differing nature of our business, departmental guidelines determine employee scheduling needs and should be communicated to the employees upon orientation and when changes are implemented, which is the case here. Finally, we go to the closing. In our closing, we're still avoiding any kind of negative tone. We want to promote goodwill with our colleagues, but we also want to make sure that they realize that there is an action required. So upon receipt, please read the procedure carefully and reply to this email by end of day Friday, January 5th, 2018. We're giving them an action date. This is confirming you understand and agree to comply with the procedure. This constitutes basically a contract. This is how we get to ensure that all of our recipients have read and understand what the message is about and what the procedure is about. Finally, we include an attachment, which is an actual copy of what the work policy, hours of work policy looks like. The policy is attached as a PDF, and when you open the document, it's written clearly, broken into separate sections, and it cites employment and other legislative regulations and laws that we're using as evidence to prove that we're not just talking out the top of our heads. There actually are laws regarding work policy. Just a note regarding the sample that I've used. It's actually the policy used for Vanderbilt University's Human Resource Department, so some of the content will be specific to educational legislation and collective bargaining agreements. This is the end of this presentation. This is the process that you will be using to plan, compose, and format any assignment messages in this course. I will ask to see your planning the message worksheets and audience analysis checklists when you submit your final documents for grading moving forward. I hope you use this as a how-to study guide as we do move forward. Thank you.